Welcome back guys, impossibile perdere channel. This Sunday I made back-to-back first place at the Perugia regional. It was like 100 players I think, and I played dracotail. So the list is like the same from the Pisa regional, but I will explain more in detail the matchups and a little bit of a deck analysis. So I will show you the list and my thought process behind it. So of course, I think this card is actually the reason why to play this deck, because this card is the best entry of the format, besides Fualos. But Fualos is can play in every deck, but this can only be played in dracotail. And if you see this card when you go second or when you go first, with some tails, you basically win the game. So because of this, all have to be maxed. The process behind it is that you have to fusion away 2 or 3 dracotail to be able to pass through entraps, to be able to beat Tash Blossom or Veiler or something like that. So these are mandatory for this reason. Then of course this is the reason why this deck is good against Yami, because those are all barbares against Yami, and the reason to play this deck is because this deck is broken when it goes second, because all the cards are barbares, because all these are cards that make fusions. Also Prosperity, which is broken. There is no way to not play this card. All those make a fusion if they resolve fusion summons, and so you have to play this, because 16 ways to fusion summons are enough. You don't need Cartesian, you don't need anything, because mathematically speaking is a lot, and also a lot of them cannot be stopped. Like this cannot be stopped. This can only be stopped by impermanence. These can only be stopped by Ash. So those cards are really hard to interact with. So those are mandatory, because if you resolve those, you need to fusion away these cards, because otherwise you will just lose to Ash Blossom on these, or like a Veiler or something like that. And I think this was just the best deck, and even after the ban list, but even before the ban list, because even though the Vanquish Soul cards are a problem in the grind game, this deck can deal a lot with the Canine cards. Canine cards is a good matchup, because all the Canine doesn't do anything, because you just chain block. Just activate Ketu and you will chain block, so Reaper cannot negate your dragons. But with Vanquish you can also win the game by stop them. By stop them I mean you can stop the Vanquish engine. So if you stop the Vanquish engine, then you will win the game, because with the Canine cards you can just easily win with the dracotails. Then of course the 2 traps, and then for the entraps you need to play these, because the worst matchups are Vanquish, so you discard this broken, so it doesn't matter if in the mirror match or Yami is not that crazy, but even against Yami is good, because if they want to make Herald, if they do not start with Obedience, to make Herald they have to give me 2 draws. So with 2 draws is a pot of greed on my opponent turn, so it's broken. Then Ash Blossom of course, because it stops the Vanquish cards, and sometimes Vanquish is a little bit weak, so if you do Ash Blossom you can actually win the game, because even if they have a Zuna, they will just lose, because they will not make Vanquish plays. Then these of course, this is the same reason as perugia, but this is actually a broken flex spot in the format. It's actually so OP, it's actually ridiculous. And Nibiu is because one of the problems of the deck is Herald, and this deals with Herald, and also in combinations with other entraps is also good against Reaper, because it's also a card that beats Reaper. So even against Vanquish Soul, if they commit and they do this plus another entraps, I can actually deal with the entire board, so they will actually not set the Vanquish Soul trap, which is actually a problem against this deck, not because of the Rejeki, but because of the protection. And this main deck is staple. Actually all 40 cards before the ban list were staple, even the flex spots. You don't need anything else, you don't need Swamp, you don't need Cartes, I already explained it, so I think this is actually so mandatory. Then 3 Altarion, 3 Gulamel. You can also play 1, but I like to play 2. For the mirror match, but even against the values of the Vanquish Soul, and this card is also good to Reborn. It's actually really good, and the main line to make Sealed is to make this, not to make Altarion, because if you make Altarion, it means that you need to have like a lot of Vanquish monster in your hand. If you lack Vanquish, not Vanquish monster, sorry, Dracotail monster. If you lack Dracotail monsters, you have to fusion away this to set one more card. So you actually summon this and you make CL with in another way. This is actually broken. Even against Vanquish Soul or like Kizuna, it protects. You actually summon this card a lot when you go first, and this is actually you summon this every time. So these are mandatory for end traps, because if you get end trap, you actually summon these two. Because when you lack engine, if your plays get stopped, you need to have like some form of engine in rotation, and SP doesn't do anything, because if you like these two, if you get Veiler on these and then Ash on Rao, if you like make SP and then you get Ash on Rao, you have like a low amount of engine. But in this scenario, you can actually summon Seal, and even if Rao gets Ash, you still have Seal, which is like a really good interruption. But you actually don't summon this a lot if you are in a blind game state, because this loses to Izuna. And then this two, of course, is a mandatory for Izuna. I already explained why. And so the side deck is basically meant to be able to cover the weaknesses of the deck, because I already explained that this deck is actually broken against everything pretty much, except for the Vanquish Soul cards. But the Vanquish Soul card, I explained that you can actually win if they do not resolve the Vanquish card. So if you like Ash Blossom Raisin or Veiler Raisin, even if they have like Izuna, you will still win the game. So what you want to do is actually stop the Vanquish Soul cards. So in order to do that, you actually set the 3 Veiler. You do not main this card, because this card is actually us against Rayami, and is also not good against mirror match, because in the mirror match you don't want to Veiler my opponent cards, you just want to stop the flame. The win condition in the mirror match is just destroying this before it negates. If you can do that, you actually can win the game. So Veiler doesn't cover that. And but against all the canine variants, Vanquish variants is like a really good card, and also against Lunalite. Same against Lunalite is with Lancia, which is good also against Malice. So it's actually mandatory. I'm not sure about post-ban list, but before yes. Then I'm also playing with Henry when I go first, and also when I go second against Yami. The same goes for this. The reason is that against Yami, your win condition is not to stop them, it's just to stop Herald. You just want to not have Herald against you. So in order to stop Herald, you actually also side out 3 Ash against Yami, because you don't need Ash against Yami, because as I said, you don't want to stop them. So even if they open Obedience, you don't want to stop Obedience, you just want to stop Herald. So all those try to stop Herald. And even though this can be dead, it doesn't matter, because if he's dead, it means that Herald is not on the field, because if you actually use Nibiru, then Herald is not on the field, so you can actually fusion away this. And this is because sometimes you can actually, Yami players also have like in their side deck, they have like Inscription, they have like Retaliating, so it makes so that I draw like a really good hand, because it fixes my hand, and if I have the perfect hand, I can also win against Retaliating or something like that, because this deck doesn't lose to Retaliating most of the times, because the way you play against Retaliating is that you will keep 5 mana in change Retaliating, or just a way to fusion. So if they use like Retaliating on the Rao, you will just change your mana, so you just play the game easily. And I UTK also a lot against Retaliating this tournament, and so those are actually against Yami, but this is also really broken against mirror match. I only say this card in mirror match because I don't have Bell, because I think that mirror match is actually really skilled, really skilled. So you can actually win by skill, and I actually think that I can do that. So I actually think that I don't need that many cards against mirror match, because I can still win the game by playing my engine cards. And so, but this is broken against mirror match because it's like Bell but better, because it destroys flame, but also beats over Seal or like Whipper. So this card is better than Bell, and even Agestiam is better because it beats Herald, which is what you want. So this was the list, and I think that post-ban list, this deck is by far the best deck. There's no competition, and the way that you play your matchups are really difficult. You have to play all the matchups in a different way. You have to approach them in a different way because this deck is more of a control deck and not like a combo deck. So even though I think this deck when goes first is actually so good, because the way that you play the games when you go first is actually to have these cards always in rotation with a lot of dracotails in your hand, and this means that you have multiple interruptions that your opponent is difficult to deal with, because it's difficult to deal with a card in my hand. Is dealing with Olisu. But all the matchups are also difficult, even Mitsurugi. But if you know to play the deck correctly, you can actually, I think, win a lot of games. And in my tournament, I actually won, I think, all the games 2-0, except for the one game in which I got a double loss against Capone. But yeah, this is all. I want to make the same shoutouts as ever. So. To Ciuccio, Bike, Piatte, all the guys from Arezzo, and Vezza, Marcone, Capons, which il mio amico Capons, mi dispiace Capons, prossima volta te ne farai. Then all the guys from Figline and all the guys that support me and ask me for a photo or everything else. So bye.